whatever you want.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Welcome, Jayden.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How are you? A fellow photographer.
Yeah. No, it's very good to be here. I'm doing well. Very weird weather today in Melbourne.
Oh,
It's
bro. It's like windy and raining. I tried to go for a walk later and had to turn around and come back because I saw those grey clouds. But then the grey clouds are like gone now. And I'm like,
yeah.
people are like losing power. There was like a news article last night that got updated this morning at like 5 o'clock saying Melbourne residents don't go anywhere, get ready to bunker down.
Which is kind of scary because, I mean, how many times do we have that with like, you know,
Yeah.
with Melbourne weather being so windy?
Yeah. I just need to flip that screen. Hang on a second.
That's okay.
Yeah, I reckon it's just a standard. If you live in Melbourne, you need to like get used to this weather.
Pretty much. I just came back from doing a photo shoot and it was raining like literally 2 minutes into it. And then suddenly I look outside and the sun's out and I just turned to who I'm photographing going, what is this? Like, what is going on with Melbourne where it's just like pouring down with rain and then literally within 30 seconds, the sun has just come out of nowhere. And it's just like, why?
I've seen so many like Instagram reels and TikToks of people recording Melbourne weather within a 5-minute period where it fluctuates 12 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like sunny, rain, cloudy, sunny.
But it's like going through a bit of an emotional change.
Yeah, or trying to give us some emotional damage.
That as well.
So how long have you been shooting?
It's always a big question that stumps me every time. Like, so I guess professionally, I've been shooting since 2018.
Okay.
But I have been interested in photography since I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
I had my first interest when I was in media class, where I was where I got asked to study an artist or something like that, and the one artist I was given was Max Dupain, so the Australian photographer, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
The Sunbaker and all that sort of thing, and so when I started looking into photography from there, then I learned the technique, which is a technique that I still use to this day, which is the layering effect, where I have multiple people in shot. And, you know, that's always a question I always get asked going, where did you find that? And I'm like, it was actually something I learned when I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
And like, it's funny because I looked back at, like, I actually found the folder from when I started doing these images. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I used to think that these were amazing, but then it's kind of like, I'm like, I don't know what I was doing. And
that's actually really good to do that because then you can acknowledge how far you've come.
Agree, yeah.
And at least you can also see a progression. And you can kind of go, oh, why didn't I do that in that photo? Oh, but I did it in that photo. And it's like, you know?
Oh, the amount of times I've looked at him and I've been like, oh my gosh, why didn't I not think of that at the time? But, you know, but then it's funny because then when you try and do it again, it just never works. But, you know, I think things happen for a reason when you're doing shoots and all that. But yeah, like I moved on to studying actually at university. I actually have a degree in fine art / photography.
Oh, shit.
Where I studied that for 3 years, and that was 2014.
Yeah.
So as soon as I left high school, I actually am from the countryside, southeast of Gippsland.
Yeah.
So I moved all the way to Melbourne, studied for 3 years. And during that time, I was in a relationship with someone who lived all the way in Germany. And so after...
the fuck?
Yeah, I know. That's a...
How did you meet them?
It's
in Germany or here?
No, actually here. And it's such a weird story. So I was in 2014, I was traveling around Australia and we went down to, I think the place is called in South Australia, Roxby Downs, which is literally this mining town in the middle of the desert. And we just, nowhere. Pretty much like there's like a supermarket, a couple of schools, and that's it. And it's like a couple of houses. And literally I learned from the residents that are there that no one actually cannot live out there unless they're actually working in the mines around that area. So it's literally
Hang on.
Yeah.
So the locals were like, you can't live out there unless you work out there.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's like a population of under 1,000 people. It's crazy.
So hang on. So
I know it's a yeah.
what was this German person doing there? They were traveling as well.
Yeah, so they were actually an au pair out down that way, and so we met through there, and then we started dating, and yeah, they had to go back to Germany because they were on a year visa. And so in 2017, I decided after finishing university, after I was going to do my honors, but I didn't want to. It was already hard enough. And I think I just got sick of studying because I went straight from there, from high school to university. And so I lived in Europe for an entire year.
Wow.
And I was based in Trier, which is around southwest of Germany, so quite close to Luxembourg and close to the French border. And beautiful place, absolutely lovely. And during that time, it was getting to the end of my relationship as well, because unfortunately it was not a very healthy one. Went through some mental abuse had this individual who was mentally abusive, was always put me down, never wanted me to do photography. And during that time, I actually took a huge step back from photography because I thought that's what she wanted. And so instead of, and every time I would talk about it, she would just shut me down, and just like I didn't end up doing any for that whole time. But during my stay in Europe, I was visiting all around Europe. So I ended up going to like London. I went to Italy for 5 days, went to like Venice, Florence, Pisa, Milan. And then I was in Paris for a few days, and then I went to the Netherlands. And so during that time I was all around seeing art. And so like I've been around art since I was 9 years old. So like I always was interested in art. That was something that has always been on my mind. And so to actually go from seeing these artworks and books to seeing them in person, like I went to the Louvre in Paris and absolutely, like literally a place where you can, have you been to the Louvre or?
No.
Oh, you can literally get lost in it. It is so big. It's like 3 stories of like artworks. I think at the end of it, I didn't even finish the whole gallery. It was that big. Like we were in there for like 3 hours, and there was still already this level where we're like, oh crap, we didn't actually do that part. But it was like, but it was amazing because like
like you studied photography.
Yes.
And then she didn't really like appreciate or understand that was what you kind of studied.
Yeah, I think, you know, I came from as well like a family of teachers, so they, I guess you could say, logical thinkers, and thinking like, oh, like when they had their son come up to us going, oh yeah, I want to be an artist, they'd kind of scratch their going, are you sure? Because there's nothing, you can't do anything, there's no money or anything like that, and you know the whole like no money spill and all that sort of thing. And so for a while there was not a lot of support. There was not any and then when I met my ex at the time, she was the same thing. She was a civil engineer, and unfortunately she also treated me like I was very dumb. And because apparently according to her, she thought artists were very dumb. It's like, you know,
I mean, it's about an appreciation, I think.
Exactly.
Like there's always going to be art.
Exactly.
And I had someone on the podcast saying that art actually is science anyway. Because in order to create art, you have to have an understanding of some level of science.
Yeah, I think it's also you use a different part of your brain as well. Like it's the different part of create, like that you use for creativity, for like creating an artwork. You can't, you know, it doesn't just come out of like nowhere. It's like, you know, it's like you look at like the masters of Da Vinci, Michelangelo, that didn't come out of like nothing. That was out of their creative minds that they had. So it's like, I think there's just a different level. I guess you could say and discuss that it's a different level of like brain activity that you could be using.
Yeah. And look, I've said it on the podcast before. It's the same thing with like Einstein, right?
Oh, of course.
Einstein had these theories that everybody thought were absolutely ludicrous and crazy. You could define that as being art.
Yeah.
Because there's art versus science, right? And all of his colleagues were scientists, and they were all like going, no, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't follow the rules of science.
Yeah.
He did experiments, 10,000 plus times, proved his theories, took them to his colleagues, and then his colleagues all reviewed it, and they were like, oh, shit.
He's actually right.
He's actually right. So then art became science.
And it's like another perfect example is Da Vinci. Like while I was in Venice, because during part of his life, he was a resident in Venice, in the city of Venice. There was a museum where people had actually recreated his architectural designs of like all these different things. So there was like a tank that he designed. He designed one of the first helicopters, and at the time, like you would have thought that people would have been like, this guy is crazy. Like, what is he talking about? Something
batshit crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Like going something flying in the air. It's like, how is that even possible? And then like when we look at it in today's time, we're just like, shit, this guy was onto something. Like this guy was like, he was on another level, like, and he was like born in the wrong era, but then maybe he was born in the right era because maybe it was him. If it wasn't for him, we might have not come up with these designs. I mean, one of the other designs he did was one of the first drawbridges where it would come up and come down. And there was that design there. And there was somewhere in this museum I was looking, someone had actually designed how it worked. And it was literally like a drawbridge that went up and down. And it's just like, it's insane.
I think there has to be a level of batshit crazy in lots of aspects of life in order to push progress forward.
Yeah.
Because if we all stay in the herd doesn't go anywhere.
Absolutely.
Someone has to take a step outside of the herd for other people to go, hey, what's he doing? Oh, I like what he's doing. And then the herd moves forward.
Yeah.
And so, look, I'm really sorry you had to go through like all of that with your exes or whatever. And
it's all right. Like, I think I've come to realize, things, you go through these things to realize that, like, and I think for me, when I came back to Australia, I think it was early 2018, I think it was maybe 2 weeks after I had gotten back, I had this sudden urge just to create. Like, I just was like, I need to create something. I've been completely inspired by all these amazing artworks and all that sort of thing. I think I need to start creating. And so I think for me, it helped me realize that it's actually something I do want to do. Like, I took a whole year off, went exploring around Europe, and it felt like every time it was like there was this thing in the back of my head going like, I think I want to do this. Even though there were times where I said, I put the camera at the back of the cupboard that of the bedroom I was staying in, it was still like something was calling out to take that camera out. And so for me, it was one of those things where I'm like, I'm glad that I did go through it. It was very painful, like a lot of hard times, a lot of things that that happened. But I think for me, I come to realize that I think it did happen because I think it helped me realize that this is actually what I want to do. And no matter how hard I'd work towards it and how many times people would say like, I don't think you can do it, or like even my own family saying, I don't think it's worth it, you should just use it as a hobby. And I'm like, no. I was too stubborn. I think that's like one of the few times I'm like, I was very stubborn. I was just like, I want to do this. This is something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah. I think we can create lots of things in all aspects of our lives. And I think it's just how we how we interpret them, what our intentions are, like a whole bunch of things, you know, like I
Yeah.
was saying before, like I was doing photography for 11 years. Reason why I stopped was because I just wanted to take a different direction.
Sure.
Plus, just some like personal family stuff, and then I was also listening to what the universe was kind of telling me, particularly to do with my best mate that passed away like 2.5 years ago. He's had more of an impact. No, I won't say that. He's still having an impact on my life, even though he's not around.
Absolutely.
Because he's sending me messages, right?
Yeah. My condolences, first of all.
Yeah, it was pretty shit. I can't believe I'm still talking about it. But he, so he was my best man when I got married many, many years ago. He was there when I got divorced. He pretty much saved my life 26 years ago, and when I met him, and in 2001, he saved my life because he got me to come over to Melbourne from Perth. But he made me his best man on his wedding day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then 2 weeks later, he went to bed and he never woke up.
Oh my gosh.
He passed away second week of his honeymoon.
Oh my gosh.
Cardiac arrest, which we later found out 6 months later was due to having myocarditis, which is from the vaccine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so he's been sending me messages ever since. The first message was about surrendering to the universe and just listening to what the universe is telling you. And yeah, so when I stopped photography, he was telling me I need to do something else.
Yeah.
He said it was like he wanted me to tap into another aspect of my own creativity.
Yep.
And so me doing this podcast is another aspect of me doing my creativity, but focusing the content on my guests.
Yeah.
And highlighting your highlights, you know, and the troubles or the moments in your life, like your Marvel origin story, right? Like, how did it come about? And I think it's like your episode 56. I started in December.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get to 100 by the 15th of December, which is when my first episode came out. So hopefully I'll get there.
Fingers crossed for that.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think creativity is what we make of it, and you can be creative in all aspects. I want to go back. I want to go back to so even though you said like your family is like a bunch of teachers, but you mentioned you were around art at the age of 9. What was that?
So as I was saying, I grew up in East Gippsland, which is around 2 hours from Melbourne. So we would always do these like Melbourne trips and all that sort of thing. And one of the trips we actually went to was the National Gallery of Victoria. And so that was actually my first encounter with like these beautiful masterpieces of paintings that like spread out across the wall and all that sort of thing. And so that was kind of like a bit of an eye opener for me. And it's like my first interaction with like old school art and through the human form and all that sort of thing. It was just it fascinated me so much. And even during primary school, my mum would always say that she would always spot me with like either a pencil in my hand or a texter in my hand, always drawing, creating stuff. And like, it was probably no surprise to them that every time I would say what my favorite class in primary school was, it was probably art class. Cause like, it was just something that just fascinated me, like just creating stuff from scratch and, you know, like creating all these different art paintings and all that sort of thing.
Mm.
And so I think during that time was when I actually was like, oh, this is something that is actually, that is something that I enjoy doing and something that I love creating art at the end of the day. I love creating, like at one point it was actually funny. A lot of people don't realize this, but I actually used to create cartoon characters as well as a kid. So that was one thing that was kind of a bit of a different thing. And I actually found that folder. Like I was just had a bunch of stuff delivered to where my partner and I live right now. And yeah, it was actually a folder of all the cartoon stuff that I created like nearly 20 years ago.
Wow.
And so that was really a cool flashback to look back at that. And and it was it was kind of a blast from the past in a way.
Would you ever put your cartoon characters on like T-shirts and stuff like that?
Oh my gosh, actually that might be really cool to do that.
Yeah.
Just I haven't thought of that, but maybe that might be a cool way of doing it. But yeah, it's just like
T-shirts and stickers. I'm actually in the next couple of weeks doing an episode with a comic book animator.
That's cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And they actually have their own comic book. And I'm
amazing.
Like, fuck, it's like crazy.
I've been a huge comic book person since I was a little boy. Like I think the first like hero that I followed was, I think for most kids, was Spider-Man. So obviously I grew up with the Tobey Maguire years of the movies, and then the second one was the Incredible Hulk.
Yep.
And then it was Batman and all that sort of thing. And then so I think that's why I decided to create my own characters. And then I got into high school, and then I decided to
That's Larry.
Hey Larry, how you doing?
Oh my God.
Hello. So I got into high school, and then I decided for a different turn that I would try doing animation.
Yeah.
And so I thought I may as well give it a try. And anyway, I think that was a decision that I thought I was making for the right reasons, but then I tried doing it and it just didn't feel right. You know, when you're starting to do something, it just doesn't feel right. And like, so I ended up doing a Cert 3 in media in high school, but it just didn't feel right. Like something was missing. And it was until I think year 10, so I would have been 16 years old. I started going back into photography, started getting back into art. And as I think every person would say, like, I think I remember taking photos on either a little iPod Touch or something like one of those little portable cameras and I remember my art teacher going, this is very interesting, very different, and, different aspect and all that sort of thing. And so then I think that really drove me to get back into doing photography.
Yeah.
And then it was, I started losing a bit of interest in just high school in general, but I just kept creating art. Like I think I at one point annoyed my mum every time I was over at her house because she'd be like doing, so have you done your math homework? And I'm like, no, I'm busy creating art. I'm just, because I would just be like,
I mean, you just loved it.
Yeah, exactly. And it was
what you wanted to do.
It's like, she makes the joke to me sometimes going that she would find it hard to get me to do 10 minutes of math homework, but I could sit on like in front of the TV with a art folio and sit there for like 4 or 5 hours and I would not get bored.
I mean, you like what you like. I was into comic books. I collected like Daredevil.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I didn't really get into any other comics. I just really loved Daredevil. So
he's pretty cool.
Yeah. Controversial question.
Go for it. Hit me with it.
What do you shoot with?
I shoot with a Canon.
Hey!
Yeah. I was like, it's one of those things that I always like. I've been asked that so many times, but like to be honest, the first ever camera I ever had, like proper camera I bought, was one in my first year of university. I had a Sony. I think it was a Sony A25, and like I didn't mind it. Like it like for me, it shot what I was wanting to do at the time and all that sort of thing. And unfortunately, at one point, the mirror on the inside, because I think had just completely messed up, and then I couldn't use it anymore. Like to the point where I would put a lens on, it was completely fuzzy, and I took it to the camera store, and I remember the camera tech just taking one look at it and going, "Yeah, just no." It's just like it's done, and I'm like,
wow,
oh great.
Do you know what the shutter count was on that camera?
Oh gosh, that's a very good question. I haven't picked it up in a long time, so I cannot remember. But
the R5, which is what I'm shooting on there.
Oh yeah.
That's got over 500,000 shots on it.
Damn. Yeah, that's a lot. And
that's, that's under a 2-year period.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That's how much I was shooting.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, like, I think I had that one for... Actually, no, I do actually remember. I have had that one before 2020, because I got it before the lockdowns happened, which was very funny timing. So I had it for like nearly 6 years, and so I did a lot of photo shoots during that time and all that. And you know, I always, it's always a funny question of going like, you know, which is the best and all that sort of thing. And I think he did say it in a podcast, going like, you know, you just need to go to a store and just see which one suits you and all that, because like
I actually don't. Look, my preference is Canon, and my preference is Canon because I like the menu system. Yeah. And it works for me. And it's the right feel for my hands and like all that type of stuff. So, and look, I think a lot of the other brands have come up to speed, or that, you know, everybody's always competing against each other to come up with like what's right from a shooter's perspective, like a photographer's perspective, and also having at least a couple of different options as well. But Sony's have always been world renowned for like video quality. Yeah. You know? Yeah. However, Canons have always been world renowned for the color palette. Yes. You know, the skin tones and stuff like that. And then you've got like players like Fuji that are coming out with more like retrograde, you know, sensors and like all this type of stuff. So it just depends what you want to shoot.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, yeah, you can buy something online, but I would go to a shop first.
Absolutely.
And just test it out. You know, see what you like, see what you don't like, pick it up, feel it. Because if you're going to be shooting, you're going to be picking it up.
Absolutely.
And it's got to feel right, you know?
Yeah, and that's it. And like, I always like to say, in a way, the camera doesn't take the picture, the photographer takes a picture. Like, so it's like, at the end of the day, and you know, I think, it was like a long time ago, I had this really weird discussion. You know, when you have those discussions with someone going, why am I having this conversation? And it's like, it was this...
Every time I'm on the podcast.
No. But yeah, like, and they were questioning my type of photographs and all that sort of thing because of the camera I was using. And I'm just kind of like, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you know how to use a camera hand to take a picture, it's the photographer at the end of the day. Because it's like, you know, I would use the example of like, if you were to go out and purchase like a $10,000 guitar, but you don't know how to play it, are you a guitarist? It's like, no, it's like you just like have a $10,000 guitar. You know, it's like, it's kind of like one of those things of like, I mean, a photographer takes a picture, and, you know, it takes a great photographer to take a picture.
About 7 years ago, I went and did a Peter Colson workshop.
Yeah, great photographer.
Yeah, and one of the things that I loved about him was his whole aspect of, yes, in the photography world, you have guidelines.
Yes.
Would you say
unspoken guidelines, I guess.
Unspoken guidelines, but also like like rules to follow.
Yeah.
In terms of what is deemed or what categorizes a photo as a good photo,
Mm-hmm.
like the rule of thirds, for example. And so he kind of said, art is what you make of it.
Yeah.
Art is your own perspective.
Mm.
If you choose to follow the rule of thirds, then you choose to follow the rule of thirds.
Absolutely.
He also said things like, if you choose to shoot, with the camera slightly off angle, because that's what you wanted to do,
Yeah.
because that's what you appreciated at the time,
Mm.
nobody else can tell you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so after the workshop, you get accepted into the Peter Colson Facebook group, and like some of the comments that he would get on some of the photos that he would post would be like, why is there a halo above that person's head?
Mm.
And he would reply with, it was intentional.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Mm.
Oh, why didn't you fix it up? Because that's what I wanted, you know? And then I later found out that I'm pretty sure he got kicked out of the AIPP.
Ah.
Yeah, the Australian Institute of Professional Photographers.
Wow.
For breaking too many rules. And the
Interesting.
AIPP isn't around anymore. They went into liquidation.
Whoops.
Yeah. And he's still running.
Absolutely.
So, and like he shoots on a Hasselblad,
Oh.
which the camera body alone, I think the one that he had was like 150,000.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Damn. Wow.
So if you're going to like learn off someone, I thought like, what a great person to learn from.
Yeah.
Who
Who keeps breaking the rules?
keeps, well, breaking the rules, but also like proving a point that rules are, they were just guidelines.
Yeah.
They're just guidelines on what the industry thought it would put into play for good photography.
Yeah, definitely. And it's always interesting, like all these, especially like I find that like when I started back in 2018, like there was all these different, like I remember everyone saying, oh, you need to shoot this way or you need to shoot that way. And I was just like, I remember looking going, I don't know, that just doesn't that doesn't interest me. I want to shoot like this specific way and all that.
Yeah.
And then it was actually really interesting because then I think it was 6 or so months into doing photography, I actually got a message from my now mentor, who has pretty much been one of my closest friends in this industry and is someone who is not afraid to say, oh, Jayden, maybe try this, but you're onto something here and all that sort of thing. And
they're a photographer as well.
Yeah, they're a photographer as well, and they've been doing it for 40 plus years.
Yeah,
in the industry, and it was really cool because they were actually one of the people who started to notice my work, and I was like only 23 at the time, and for me, still quite young, still trying to figure out how things work and all that sort of thing. Because I remember at the time I would message, like I remember when I started my Instagram account, like I tried to message like other photographers saying, hey, any advice and all that sort of thing. And it would just, I learned very quickly that no one responded.
Yeah. You know why no one responds? Because they all fucking gatekeep.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, bro, we are all stuck on this island together.
Yes.
We should all help each other. Right?
Absolutely.
Don't gatekeep locations.
Yeah, it's like...
that is the biggest form of flattery. If someone else wants to go to the same location and take a photo to try to mimic what you created, and maybe they're able to do it even better. And then imagine if they did and you asked them,
Yeah.
how they did it, and they actually told you.
Yeah.
And if they actually told you, then everything's cool. Like, we're all helping each other, you know?
Exactly.
It's so weird. It was so weird.
It is. And like, I mean, even to today when I've had like, when I have individuals approach me about like, and people who have like been doing it a bit longer, but then they come to me for advice, I'm like, whoa, this is actually really flattering and all that sort of thing. So for me, I'm more than fine. Like I always say, like, even in the line of work going like, we're all in this together, you know, it's no need to have that competition because then it leads to unhealthy competition, unhealthy, like being jealous of each other's success and all that sort of thing. It's just like, it's and so like it's always been really nice as well when I've had like up and coming photographers who approached me for like advice and all that, and I'm like, you know what, I definitely want to give them a hand however I can, because I even like it was actually really interesting that we're talking about this because the individual who I was shooting today is a up and coming burlesque performer, and I was talking to her going like, because she's about to do her first like solo on stage, and I said, how are you feeling? And she's like, oh yeah, feeling a bit nervous and all that sort of thing. And I just said, well, think of it this way, like all the mentors and teachers that have been looking after you, they all had to start somewhere. They had to start with their first performance where they were in the same boat you are, and they were just like, that's actually very true. Like, cause and we were all in that same spot. Like we were all that new photographer who had not picked up a camera yet, or we were that, like, as I was saying, first burlesque performer who hasn't done a solo by themselves and have only done the group shows. It's like, you know, we've all been in the same spot, you know? We should definitely help each other out.
And that's so cool, like having other photographers ask for advice. You know, you could almost like go back to your family and say, hey, I'm starting up a Jayden photography coaching business. This is how I'm going to make money out of it, or even more money, you know, like.
I remember I was like I just had my first exhibition in 2022, which was the series where I called Burlesque, where I photographed the burlesque scene and all that sort of thing, and dragless scene. And I actually ended up doing a second follow-up, which was Act 2. And if it wasn't for that, I definitely would, like, I'm now part-time as a photographer. So my main source of income comes from being paid to do artists, performers' portraits, and I even shoot live photography. So I shoot live shows and all that. And it was really, like in the Act 2, it was a really cool experience because one of the performers, because on that night I had someone perform, and they had this massive like martini glass that they were performing in, and it was so amazing and like so cool. And then I then decide in my nice button up shirt and suit pants and everything to jump into that martini glass full of water as a celebration, because I thought, you know what, because of this industry, I was able to make part of my dream come true of one step closer to doing this as a full-time career. Yeah. You know, and so for me, I didn't really do anything like that in the first show. So for me, I was like, I had a group of friends going, I think you need to do this. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to do this. And and so now that is, I guess you could say, immortalized in photographs. Like the photographer actually who I hired for that night actually caught that on camera.
That's cool.
And but yeah, and so it's really cool to see, and that and my sister and my mum are massive supporters of what I do now, seeing that I've been able to make something, and you know, and have been really great and have been very supportive of it.
There's lots of quotes that say the same thing, but the one that kind of resonates with me is everyone thinks you're crazy until you make it, and then they want to know how you did it.
Yeah, it's I like that one. That's it's one of those things. It's just like I said, I don't think for me, I would have not been able to do it without the burlesque community and the drag community that has like pretty much always been there for me, has seen the worth in what I created and all that. Like throughout the 2-year span, I created these 2 publications because I turned them into books as well. I actually was interested one day, so I actually counted how many photographs I photographed for that. Yeah, photographed, Jake. Good job. I did for that series, and I think it was in 2 years 121 portraits, and which everyone was just like, "Are you serious, in 2 years?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably why I was very tired at the end of like all of even on my exhibition night. I was just like, oh, I'm so tired." I'm like, and then I look on the wall and see these like portraits everywhere, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense because it's just like that's all I was doing during that time.
That was like me 2 years ago. I had this like crazy idea of like saying how many shoots I could do in 1 year.
Oh gosh,
in a 12-year period.
Wow.
So 3 years ago, I think I did like 187.
Wow.
And then the year after, so 2 years ago, 227.
Wow, that's impressive. Damn.
And I was like, yeah, nah, what am I doing? So then last year, I was like, yeah, nah, I can't. I literally, I kept track.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I can do it. There's just so much other life stuff that's going on.
Of course.
And yeah, it was just not capable.
Yeah, I definitely think, I remember like my closest friend who was actually when I started doing the Burlesque series, is one of my closest friends to this day. She was actually the second performer I had ever photographed in the Burlesque scene. She actually said to me after, I think it was the second book I did, I said, you're going to take a break, are you? And I'm like, yes. Because I'm like, it was a very busy 2 years doing this and all that. But I think it was really cool because I always like to say the story of like, I actually, because I kind of like when I started doing photography, I was a fine art / boudoir photographer. And then I kind of fell into doing burlesque and all that because I had a friend of mine during lockdown who was saying, oh yeah, I'm doing these burlesque classes and all that. And I'm like, what's burlesque? And like, cause I had no idea what it was at the time. And they're just like, you don't know what it is? And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Did I just offend you?
I was going to ask, how did you get into it?
Yeah.
You kind of like fallen into that conversation.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So it was during COVID that friend was doing
like classes with online classes during that time.
Yeah.
And then they went to me, all right, so as soon as lockdown is lifted, I'm going to take you to a show. And I'm like, sounds good to me. And so like during that time, she kept sending me like videos of like performances, like international performers and all that. And then I went to my first show and it was amazing. Like it was just like a whole different world, like within it. It was just like the costumes to the dancing. It's like, it was amazing, like absolutely incredible. And during that like whole time, when I was photographing, I kept getting asked the question of going like, do you think you'll ever do an exhibition and all that sort of thing? And I did want to, but every time like I had an idea, it just didn't feel the same way of like something just didn't feel right. Like I had, I like literally there was this one point where I was 90% done of an exhibition. I scratched it. Like I just completely got rid of it because for me, it felt forced. It felt like this didn't feel right. And it felt like I was just putting something out there because that's what everyone wanted to see. And then when I started photographing performers in the scene, the burlesque scene, I was like, I think it got to the third or fourth shoot. That was when like, I think I was at home and I was just like looking at these portraits and I'm like, this is it. Like, I think this is actually what I want to do. I want to actually showcase the Melbourne scene in a series. And that was kind of like how it started. And I actually, at the time, the performer who I was talking about before, who was a second, their name is Valerie Vava Valentine. Lovely individual, amazing performer. And she was definitely one of the individuals who encouraged me the most. Like the second shoot that we did together, like the one that I did for the series, when we had the photos, when we took the photos and all that, she was like, you need to publish these and you need to, I think you need to publish these. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, because like at the time I wasn't like, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem at the time with going like that. And she was like, no, you need to do this. And like, I'll help you with this. And so we ended up posting these to Bombshell magazine in the UK.
Yeah.
We ended up getting published in it, which was really exciting because like that was the first time I had internationally gotten published. And like the first one was for a Burlesque magazine, which I was like so excited. And
that's so cool. And it's so good that she like pushed you to kind of like get them published.
Yeah.
Because she obviously believed in what you helped her create, and that she obviously also was like, you've got a real talent. We need to share your talent around to the rest of the community.
Absolutely. And honestly, with like, we just celebrated a 3-year friendiversary.
Hey.
And honestly, without her encouragement, like she's one of the individuals who kept pushing me and kept encouraging me to keep going and all that. So honestly, I don't know what I would have done without her.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, so, and to this day, it's still one of my favorite shoots. It actually, one of the photos from that shoot actually became the front cover of the book because I pretty much just said to her going, I don't want any other photo
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Like I when I published the Burlesque book, I was like, I want this one to be the front cover because just no. I didn't want any other one. And then I actually, when I was talking to the person who was publishing my book, they said when I think at the time I didn't have a front cover yet, and they said to me going, and it was funny, it was kind of like we were both thinking the same thing. They go to me going, you're going to use this photo, aren't you? I would strongly encourage that. And I'm like, I was already planning on doing it. And they're like, okay, good. So they were just like, they were on the same level with that as well. And, but yeah. And I think one of the cool things about creating the series was like, and like I think the most common question I got asked, like when we were doing the artist talks and when I've had people come up to me asking about it, was which portraits were like your favorite one and all that sort of thing. And it was, for me, it was always a hard one because, and this is the thing that I always love about doing burlesque, drag photography, is because everyone brings such a different energy to the shoot and everyone is so different. And it's just, I think that's what's amazing about this community is that like everyone is just so unique and different. And so for me, like every time I did a shoot, and I could honestly say in the 121 portraits that I took for both of those series, no image is different. No image is the same because everyone was just so unique, so different. They brought their own energy to it. And like every time, like I think there was one shoot that really stood out. Well, if I was to say one, like there was one where I was working with an individual who I think they had done a couple of shoots, and they said to me going, oh, by the way, I'm not really good at doing like the sexy poses and all that for the burlesque side of things. And I said to him going, okay, so who would you say your persona is? And they're like, I'm more on the quirky and weird side. And I just said, all right, well, give me just that. I don't want you to force something that is not part of your persona, because if that is part of your persona on stage, then why would you portray something in a photograph that is not part of your persona? And so that's why every time I did a shoot, I was like, give me that persona that you portray on stage. You know, don't give what you think that I want to see.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's always.
I think that's really smart that you kind of like said that to them, because at the end of the day, your photography is going to be as authentic as the subject.
Mm.
And if the subject isn't authentic within themselves, then that's going to come through,
Absolutely.
you know. And I think people forget that when you're a photographer, you do have to provide guidance and a level of coaching and direction, because they may very well have a preconceived idea as to what you're looking for. You know, like I would have people question why I wanted to take their photos, because they felt like they didn't fit my feed. And I'm like, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, why? What? Like, why would you even say that? You know, like, you've got a preconceived idea of what my feed should look like, or like you're not, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I actually had a couple of times when like some up and coming performers who I was photographing, they said, "Oh my gosh, I was so over the moon when you messaged me about like doing a shoot with you and all that." And I was like, I came across your work while you're performing and I thought you're incredible. And so I wanted to photograph you for the series because I think you're amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not about like, you know, because I think they were thinking like that because they're only an up and comer and they're not many people know their name. And it's like, well, it's actually, this series is not about that. Like, it's not about who's the most popular performer or popular person out there. It's actually about showing the uniqueness of each individual.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think it was really nice to see that this series actually, and it was really amazing. And like I said, I think on the first opening night, I started crying because I was just like, I think for me, I was able to sell out that whole event. Like, I think there was over 100 people at the event.
Wow.
And it was so packed to the point where I actually had the the venue manager, like on the night, pretty much say, yeah, Jayden, we had to cap your event because people were still buying tickets to it. Like, oh, wow, okay. And
that is amazing, dude.
Yeah, I was so, like, literally the first thing when I heard that, because I had a bunch of performers who were performing that night, I literally went to the backstage area and said, everyone, we've capped out at 100. And yeah, there was just a huge applause. And I was like, oh my gosh, it was just so awesome to see how much this series impacted everyone. Yeah. And so for me, I was like, and you know, like I think I even said this at the on my thank you, saying that like as a child, looking at when I would go to these national galleries and all that sort of thing, and seeing like these artworks on the wall and all that sort of thing, and thinking, gosh, I want to do that. And then having that happen was like, just like I said to him, going, you made my 14-year-old self, like my 14-year-old self would not believe that, would be like, oh my gosh, really? Like, are you sure that it's going to be my work? Are you sure it's not someone else? But it was pretty awesome. And yeah.
What advice would you give someone who wanted to set up an exhibition?
Ooh, that's a good question.
We only ask the deep questions
here. I like it.
I've got another deep question, so be prepared.
Okay, good to know. I would probably definitely, it's always good to research like what is, you know, going on in the art community and all that sort of thing. Like when I was creating Burlesque, I wanted to obviously make sure that like no one had been doing an exhibition like this before and all that sort of thing, because obviously you don't want to do something. Yeah, it's always very hard to create something that hasn't been done before. And so for me, I like to research. I came up with all these different names. Like, so for me, the name Burlesque came from the German word burlesque. So like I wanted to, and I think that was a dedication to my time I spent in Europe
Mm.
and spent in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just go for it. Like, I think honestly, if you have sit on the idea, make sure. I think also the other thing I'd like to say is make sure you're doing it art that you enjoy, because don't create for. Because I think we all as artists get into that headspace of going like, oh, we need to create what everyone else wants to see in it. But then it's like, but then are you being true to what you like to see, And so for me, I always like to say, create art that you like. Create art that, that you enjoy doing.
Yeah, because then you're creating it for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not creating it for anybody else.
Absolutely.
But I do like what you mentioned there about doing some research and trying to create something that's uniquely you.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, you said before, like, things have already been done. People are already creating stuff. The speed at which technology's running at right now, like, and it's not even just in the art space. It's happening in music. It's happening in movies and film, and like all that type of stuff. So, being able to authentically create something that means something to you helps to allow or give the opportunity for other people to appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And appreciate your work, and stuff like that. And that's obviously what's happened in the burlesque industry with your ability to build those relationships with the performers and then, do an exhibition and like all that type of stuff, right?
Absolutely. And, I think definitely having a good support base as well. Like, I'm about to celebrate my 5-year anniversary with my partner, and honestly, she's
shout out to
her. Sarah, I love you, baby.
Hey.
I honestly don't know what I'd do without her. Like, I have always, said that I've always wanted to do photography, and, she's always encouraging me to keep going and all that. And so, like, I remember, and this was really nice, especially coming from a relationship, as I said, from my ex, where they were trying to push me out of photography. There was one day, and this one was like, this memory will always stick in my mind as like something that I'll always remember, where I came home one day. I think I was feeling really stressed and all that. And I just said to her going, I don't think I can keep doing this. I can't keep doing photography. I think I should quit. So, and she actually goes, why? She just asked why. And I'm just like, because I was so used to hearing like from my ex before going like, okay, we'll find something else for you to do, or, that's a good idea and all that. And so she was actually the first person to say, why? Why do you want to do that when you enjoy doing it? And for me, that was one of the moments where I was like, wow, it hit
the jackpot.
Yeah. And, so she's been definitely a number one supporter for me. And so like, I definitely always like to say to people going like, find a good support base, find, people, and, times do get hard. Like, sometimes you might hit a few bumps, but it's like, life's a roller coaster. Just got to keep going. It's got its ups and downs, and then suddenly it slows down, and then gets a bit easier. And so, I think, it's definitely, I've been very lucky in the later years of doing photography that I've found the right people to support what I do.
So the next deep question is,
go for it.
Pineapple on pizza.
Oh gosh.
Okay. Or no pineapple on pizza. Because I have a very clear mind on what needs to happen.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Okay, so I'm probably going to get so many comments and messages on my Instagram. I'm sorry to say, I absolutely love pineapple on pizza.
Pineapple on pizza, people.
I was just
I love pineapple on
oh,
pizza.
nice.
Yeah.
Even like, I don't know why, but like it was always one of those things that I've always loved. I even like, and this is probably another thing, I actually love it on a good Parma. Have you tried that?
Yeah. I mean, that's just a Hawaiian Parma, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, so I am team pineapple.
there was a time period where there was a group of guys who were going around eating like we like just trying like heaps of Parma places and like rating them.
Nice.
And
Gosh,
like,
I need to do that.
And like the Hawaiian one was always really good.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
a nice sweet. It's got very sweet, but then it's like it's just got the nice taste of a Parma, just with a little bit of a sweet add to it.
Look, we did switch it up a little bit, and we did dumplings one day, and I still hold the record for the number of dumplings in one sitting.
Ooh, how many was that?
It was like those those steamed dumplings, these big ones like this. Someplace down Swanston Street. It's not there anymore, but I think it was like 26.
Damn, that's impressive. I think the most I've done was like 6. That's very impressive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
Needless to say, I did not have to pay for any of that, but I had to roll back to work that day.
Oh, yeah, very full. God.
What do you think are some of your strengths and weaknesses with your photography?
Ooh, another good question. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one thing that a lot of people don't realize as well, for me, I actually was a life model at one point. So back in 2019, I decided to try life modeling because I wanted to get a feel of like what it's like on the other side of that, like in front of the being in front of painters, being in front of drawers, and even being in front of other photographers. And I think as well during that time with my ex, I had a lot of low self-esteem issues. She always made me feel like very bad about how I looked and all that. And so for me, it was a way of kind of feeling empowered again for my own body as well.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And so I started life modeling from 2019 to I stopped in 2023. But that was around the time I started doing part-time photography. So it became like I was doing all these multiple things. So
much stuff.
Exactly.
To like manage your your workload and your schedule just becomes unmanageable.
Oh, it does. It does. And so I think I definitely have the I guess the experience of being in front of the camera and being in front of like artists and all that sort of thing. And
you definitely didn't hesitate when I asked you to come on the podcast. Some photographers are like, huh? What? Why do you want me in front of the camera? I'm like, dude, you got a story to tell.
Yeah. It's been really interesting because like I actually have been asked that question going, are you like someone who doesn't like being in front of a camera? And I'm like, I don't think I've ever had that moment where I've been like, I've felt like I didn't like being in front of a camera. Like, I mean, like if people say, oh, let's, take a family picture, I'll be like, yeah, okay, cool. Where do you need me and all that sort of thing. Or like taking photos with my partner. Like, it's just like.
I'm always taking selfies.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's really good. And I think it does. It does show your level of appreciation for all sides of the camera, like being in front of the camera versus being in the back of the camera. And I think like for me, like when I was shooting, I was always like putting myself in front of the camera. And like, either doing like dorky things or like making people laugh or like, putting up stupid how to pose videos and like touching my butt and like all this type of stuff, right? But what it also showed was that it showed my personality. And so it allowed people to see my personality online. And then when they came for a shoot, they would see the exact same person.
Yeah.
And then they'd go, oh my God, like you're exactly like you are online. And I'm like, yeah, because like, why would I fake it?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand, And look, I get that some people don't want to open themselves completely. But I found through comedy and through making people laugh, I kind of wove that into my technique of taking photos because it made people feel comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you get someone to be vulnerable and open up if you can't like develop a technique of making them feel comfortable,
Yeah. I think one of the things I also realized was that not every pose is going to work for everyone. And I think sometimes people don't realize that. And like, I think by myself modeling, I realized that myself, and even through doing burlesque photography and drag photography, like I remember hearing from some performers saying, they asked me to do like a back bend or like a splits when I can't even do one and all that. And it's like, okay, well, these individuals must have not researched like the style that you work in and all that. And, all poses work differently for other people. And there was this other shoot that I did for Burlesque, the second book, where I was working with an individual. And so we were starting with some very simple poses and all that sort of thing, and something didn't feel right and all that sort of thing. And then I said, do you want to grab out like your fans? Because I do a lot of fan work. And as soon as we started working with the fans, it was like completely different. Like, and so it was like, so they actually felt more comfortable being photographed their fans because it became a part of them. It became part of how they were posing. And, it was like, so like for them, they felt more comfortable posing with fans, or like other performers prefer being posed with like, with fans, with other like stuff that they use.
Yeah,
for
material or like other props and things like that. Yeah, it is interesting, like the whole use of props and how sometimes it can be of benefit, but it can also be a disadvantage.
Yeah,
because it allows the subject to potentially like hide behind the item or whatever.
Sure.
But I guess it just all depends on like the flow of the theme and like, all that type of stuff.
I think it's also how it's used as well. Like you don't make it the center of attention.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing is like, like I had a performer who posed on this. It was this amazing, beautiful chair that they brought in. And we sent it in a way where they were just like, they would be posed on the chair, but they were still like the front and center, but then the chair became part of them as well. So it's like, I think it's also the way it's, you position it. And so like, because I've had a couple of conversations with photographers about like using props and all that sort of thing. I just said, I think it's just the way you use it, and just make sure that the individual who you're photographing is, I guess you could say, the main center of like attention. Or
All right, talk me through how would you have the conversation about using a chair?
Ooh.
I only ask because I recall a few times where I found it difficult to articulate like how, or like the vision of what I was trying to get. But then often I would get to a stage where things were just like
flowing well,
working and flowing.
Ooh, okay. So I think
Sorry if this is like
No,
giving away your tricks of the trade,
Oh
but
no, how dare you?
but we already covered the pineapple question.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it can be open now. I think it's like the same thing of like not like if it's for an individual who doesn't like work well with like sitting on chairs and all that sort of thing. Some people like aren't comfortable posing on chairs, so that's obviously a very different story. For people who don't mind being posed on chairs and all that sort of thing, I think it's just like whatever works with them, like what side they prefer and all that. Like, you know, how people have a preferred side. So sometimes like if they don't, like if they just like the front on side, like just front on images, but then sometimes if it's like, oh, I prefer my right side, I like to at least position the chair in a way so that they can, I guess, showcase that side and the preferred side. So it's like, I think it varies depending on each client that I work with. I think it's a very hard question, but yeah.
That's a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
Basically, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on the individual.
Yeah.
It depends on so many other factors.
It is. It's like
the way you answered that question just shows me the depth of understanding as to all of the different aspects of what you've learned and through your experience. You know, I think like often like my mates or like people who appreciated my photos, they would question me or like I always felt like they didn't understand or they didn't appreciate the level of depth that I would always go to, you know, and yeah, like I'd always try to explain to them, you know, like when I pick up that camera, the things that are going through my mind, it's like a invisible cloak that like comes over me. Yeah. And like I have so many things that I have to think about, like lighting and angles and where the light source is coming from, like how to pose, like camera settings and like conversation and like how am I going to kind of like keep this flow going, you know?
Absolutely.
Wardrobe, what their eyes are doing, what their hair is doing, what are they doing with their hands, like are their feet pointed, like all this type of stuff, you know? And there's so much going on that it's not just about clicking that button and expecting to like come up with a great image, you know?
It is, and it's like the amount of times I've had that conversation with people where I've even said going like, oh yeah, I do photography, and they kind of do a roll of the eyes because it's just like they think it's very simple to take a picture, and it's like it's actually, as you were saying, it's not. You know,
it's because of these.
Exactly.
It's because we have a camera in our pocket.
Exactly.
Every freaking minute of the day that everybody thinks that they're a photographer.
Yeah, and that's
but like you go and look at, you know, an Instagram feed that's taken by an iPhone or an Android versus one that's taken by a digital SLR by someone who knows how to use a digital SLR. You kind of go, okay.
There's a huge difference.
There's a huge difference.
Exactly. And like, I think one of the things that like why myself, like I'm very attention to detail and all that sort of thing. I think that goes to what one of my weaknesses is, because you did ask that before. And I think I'm a very big perfectionist, which I feel like that can be a thing for as all creatives.
Yeah, that is your demise. You need to let go of that, son.
Yeah, I know. It's a habit I'm trying to kick. And I think for me, like, I remember like while I was studying art, like I was studying into like the like diaries of like Leonardo da Vinci and all that sort of thing. And he would actually spend time, like when it comes to like doing his images and all that, he would have like pages of pages in his scrapbooks of just hands, like hand poses, and literally just like from the wrist up, it would just be him detailing hands for like his images. And so he would actually spend ages detailing bits and pieces. And that's when you look at one of his paintings, everything is so like specific, so detailed. And so for me, I think that's where my appreciation to detail. Like I've had conversations with people when I've been at galleries and going, oh yeah, that's really interesting, this. And they're like, I wasn't even looking at that. And I'm like, I know. Because I'm just like looking at the whole thing and they're just looking at, the main,
I think you're so, like, that's so true through the process of being a photographer. And once you work out your style, because it is a self-discovery journey.
Yeah.
To work out what your style is and what you like doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you double down on that and you focus in on it, what happens is you're basically conditioning your brain and you're training your eye.
Yeah.
And what I found for myself was that because I was always pushing to get better and no one else was pushing me, I was pushing myself.
Absolutely.
And I push. I had a mate that would come and do some behind-the-scenes videos and stuff like that, and I'd show him photos and stuff, and he was like, dude, I didn't even see that. Like, what is going on? You know? And he's taken up photography now, and he's bought himself a camera and all this, and he's like, the stuff that I learnt off you,
wow,
like your eyes is just next level.
Yeah.
You know?
I think you also mentioned a really good point of like going, like, you always definitely need to keep pushing yourself. And, you know, you are sometimes your biggest like person to keep pushing yourself, because at the end of the day, no one's going to do this for you. Like you have to go out there, create and all that. Like I remember having a conversation with a mate of mine who loves doing music. He wrote songs and all that sort of thing. And he said that he wanted to be a musician. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I mean, you know, look into doing gigs and all that sort of thing. Because obviously I've done photo shoots with musicians and I've talked to him about how they started and all that. And yeah, every time it's like go out and find gigs. He did one gig and then like there was like maybe a few people that came up, which was good, you know. It's a starting point. And then it would be like, I give up. And I'm like, okay, why is that? And he's like, it's too hard. And it's like, well, I don't think if you were to become a musician within the first 3 weeks, a very popular musician, the first 3 weeks, you would have to be one of the luckiest people in the world to literally make it in 3 weeks. It's like, unfortunately, these things take a lot of time, a lot of, effort. Yeah, it's just a lot of hard work as well. And I think, we just got to keep pushing ourselves. And as well as like, you know, with saying it's good to have a good support base, but then also you got to encourage yourself to kind of keep pushing yourself to keep going, you know? And of course, like, I had times where, as I was saying, like, I was like, oh, fuck, why? What am I doing? And then I just had to remind myself going, you know what? No, I'm going to keep going. I love what I'm doing. And I want to keep going.
Look, if you have talent, that's great. Like, double down on that, right? But what I find, and this is, I guess, kind of been documented by a number of people, and like I watch a lot of Joe Rogan, and he's got a lot of like martial arts people on there, sports athletes. I'm currently rewatching the David Goggins podcast, you know, and they talk about talented people get lazy because they're trying to rest on their talent. But discipline will outwork talent every day.
I like that.
Because discipline is going to get you up in the morning and get you to the gym even when you don't want to. Right? And they're saying like some of these UFC fighters who are super talented don't train.
Really?
And then when they go to a fight, they wonder why they lose.
Because, yeah, it's discipline.
Because it's discipline,
Mm.
you know. And it's not motivation either. It's discipline, you know. So when things get hard, you know, with whatever you're doing, you just need to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Keep going, keep pushing yourself forward. No one else is going to, you know, do it for you. You've got to kind of like do it yourself, you know?
Absolutely. And yeah, I think that was one of the questions. Like, I had a friend of mine who was like, oh, you know, like you're doing so many shoots and all that sort of thing. How are you able to, you know, do so many and all that sort of thing? And it's like, I think, you know, it's just getting myself out there, you know, the discipline of going, you know what, I want to keep doing more shoots and all that sort of thing and make time for it as well. You know, I remember, I can't remember where I read this from, but it was like someone said, if you know, if you were to read like a page of a book like every hour of the day, imagine how much reading you would get if you keep disciplining yourself to keep reading an hour a day. And so it's like it's that whole discipline, and the same with what you were saying with like professional athletes, like, you know, that they have to wake up every morning and go to the gym for like a 2 to 3 hour set, and like they have to get themselves into the routine and have to keep encouraging, even if there's days where you're just like, oh, I don't think I can do this. It's like, no, I'm gonna keep going because I know that this is my goal and this is where I want to be. And yeah, so I agree.
I think it's also touched on an interesting point there about like habits and goal setting and things like that. I think it's great to have a goal, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't love the process of getting to the goal, you won't get to the goal.
Absolutely.
You know, and I loved the process of taking photos. I you know, it was very hard to begin with because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Of course.
I didn't even know what style I wanted to do. So I tried like lots of different styles, and then I landed on model photography, and then I was doing like fashion and fitness, and then I thought, well, it's way too competitive. So I wanted to do something edgy, and I wanted to like test myself on seeing whether or not I could make people feel comfortable, and I did, and I got feedback. So then I just continued that.
Yeah.
But like, you know, the whole sourcing work or sourcing models, whilst I also try to like prove that I had a portfolio, and then like working out my editing style and like all this type of stuff, you know, is all really hard. And I was like, I remember when I first started, you know, at the start of the 11 years, I was editing one photo. It took me 45 minutes.
Wow.
One photo.
Wow.
Right. And even then I was like probably like not happy with it. Right. And then at the end of the 11 years, I got that down to 3 minutes.
Amazing.
Because I knew what I liked and I knew what worked.
Yeah.
And if I saw something on the photo that needed editing, I knew how to do it because I had the 11 years of experience.
Exactly.
You know?
And it's like, yeah, I've had that same question of like, you know, how to learn Photoshop or like how to learn like Premiere and all that sort of thing. It's like, you just got to take time to learn. Like sometimes I watch videos on YouTube as well where I can learn some techniques and all that sort of thing. But yeah, you just got to, you know, learn. And just
Does a video scare you?
Before I started doing video, yes, because it was like, because obviously, you know, it's a very different area. Like obviously,
it's a whole different ball game.
Oh, it is.
It's a different language. It's like different menu settings, different program.
Oh my gosh.
Like, bro, like what the fuck is going on? What the fuck is a LUT?
Exactly. And like, I remember when I did a couple of videos and all that sort of thing, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. and I hope that
Yeah.
it looks good.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. Like I hope it looks good because I don't like. I've got no experience in doing video whatsoever, and I'm just like, but it's good. Like I am less afraid of video than I was before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like obviously comfortable with photos, like because obviously that's where all my experience comes from is taking photos.
Yeah, and it's like it's exactly the same as when you're starting something new. Of course, you're going to be anxious. You're going to be scared
Yes.
because it's the fear of the unknown.
Oh, of
You
course.
know, it's the fear of not knowing what to do with it,
Mm.
right? But it's like the burlesque mentors
Mm.
to your burlesque friend. The burlesque mentors all started at their very first performance. You got
Absolutely.
to start somewhere.
Exactly.
I will be more inspired by someone who takes action and fails, for a better word, than someone who doesn't take any action.
Yeah.
Like if you take action and you initiate something, that's great.
Oh, you take the first steps.
Yeah.
And I always like to say to people is, you know, don't be afraid of like sometimes ideas don't work. Like I remember like I was working, like I had this idea that I approached a friend of mine and I said, oh my gosh, I had this really cool idea. And, you know, I want to try this. Would you be interested in all that? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. It came to the shoot day. Nothing was working that day. It was like I tried 3 different ideas and just nothing was working that day. And then we ended up getting like a handful of photos. And I remember saying to her that day, I'm like, I am so sorry. Like I'm so sorry. And she was like, no, you're fine. It's all good. You know, because she understood the process of going like, these things happen, you know, unfortunately some ideas don't work. And, you know, I always like to say to people, it's okay if that happens because from that you'll learn what to do differently and what will work better the next time.
It's always a learning experience. If you don't,
absolutely.
If you don't get the outcome that you're targeting, it's always going to be a positive experience anyway because you're going to learn something.
Exactly.
Learn what you like. We'll learn what you don't like. Learn what to do better next time.
Absolutely. And I think it's also you could come to appreciate like when something does work because you're just like, oh my gosh, that actually did work, you know? And, you know, there are photos that I look back on and still to this day, I'm like, I can remember thinking to myself going, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And then when I looked at the result, I was like, whoa, I actually took that shot. Where it's like when you have that moment, you're like, whoa. It's just like, you just know that you've done something really cool.
Yeah. And I would always get like that buzz whenever I took that shot. It's like, holy shit, I've seen this photo by some European photographer and I feel like I've executed it to a T.
Yeah. It's always funny because like people always know like when I work with someone, when they know that I've taken a really good shot because I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, and they're just like, good shot. And I'm like, yes, you need to see this. And they're like, okay, yeah, no, I understand. And so that's always like, I always get very excited. Like when an idea works, you're just like, oh my gosh, I am so happy, you know, when it's like, so I think it's also, as I was saying, you just come to appreciate when an idea works and so for me, I always like to say to people, it's like, it's okay if some ideas don't work because, you know, it happens, you know?
Exactly. Okay, next question.
Go for it.
Because I've seen the tattoos on your arm. It's always good seeing a creative with tattoos because it means you're not afraid of commitment and
I like that.
committing yourself to the art.
Yes.
Which is your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good one. So the one on my sleeve, so this one that I'm still in the working process of, like, so I've actually decided to pretty much dedicate my whole arm to all the Burlesque performers who have actually impacted my life.
Wow.
So that's actually what this haul is about. So I'm going to be getting this finished hopefully by the end of this year.
Yeah.
I've got most of this leg done and I've got a couple on this leg as well. for me, like, there was a time where I only had 3 tattoos, and now I've counted 23. And I went on a bit of like a tattoo binge where I just started getting tattooed, and kind of like the tattooist was like, yeah, it's kind of like tattoo therapy. And I'm like, yeah, actually, it kind of is like that.
It's
And
totally tattoo therapy.
yeah,
It's
and
cathartic.
it is. And like a lot of the ink that I've gotten on me has it actually started to become, I was talking to my uncle about this, it started to become like, once it's on me, it's like a seal of what I have gone through. Like on the back of this leg here, I've got a heart-shaped coffin. So on the back of my leg, which says "Love Never Dies." And for me, it is a reminder of that. You know, even though like I've lost a couple of people in the last few years, and it's
Sorry to hear that.
That's so good. It was definitely like, one was someone who was a strong father figure for me. Like unfortunately, at this point now, I don't really talk to my father, unfortunately. And so he was someone who actually looked out for me, and unfortunately, unexpectedly passed away. And so for me, that tattoo was a reminder that obviously, even though they're not here, that love never dies, that it always stays there, and it always is going to be there for you. And, you know, they're always going to, they're never going to leave you, and they're always have a special place for you. And so for me, like, sometimes I would have these tattoos on my body that is kind of like, in a way, a seal. So it's like a seal of a representation of something that's happened. And I've got like a all-time low tattoo from one of my favorite bands, which is Hold On Tight, This Ride Is a Wild One, which is from their song Missing You, which is a reminder of that, you know, which I was saying before, life is like a roller coaster. You know, it's like, it can be a little bit up and down, but you're going to be all right at the end of the day. And it was actually quite a funny story with this one as well, because I actually got it because of my ex as well. And so, but yeah, thank goodness I didn't get their name. I'm very happy about that.
Shit.
Yeah. And so it actually was, there was a point where I nearly wanted to get it removed, because it was a reminder of obviously what happened. But then I think it was like after a few months after we split, I kind of was like, you know what, actually, I think it's a reminder. Like it's still a reminder to this day that life is full of ups and downs. And, you know, if I got through that time of my life where I was in a very mentally abusive relationship, where someone made me feel like I was never good enough for them, and like that I can, you know, get through anything, you know. And so for me, that's why I've decided to keep it on me, and that's why I decided to, you know, do that. But yeah, it's a very hard one with which one's my favorite, because every tattoo I've gotten has had a very significant meaning. Like I've got like on this leg.
Sorry, I'll just stop you there.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you will get through every up and down in life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that you weren't good enough for them. You're good enough for someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just remember that, dude.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's yeah, I've been, and also, like, as I said, I've been blessed with like literally the most amazing partner in the world, who, it's really interesting story. And I can actually talk about that. That was actually how we met, was actually during the days of MSN. Remember that fun little chat app? We were actually talking to each other at 13, because we added each other and had talked to each other for like 9 months or something like that. And then obviously we went our separate ways. And then it was, I think 10 years later, I got a friend request from her, and like for a sec I was like, who is this? I'm like, oh my gosh, and then so I added her, and we were talking for a couple of weeks, and we actually met up for the first time.
Right.
And yeah, and the rest is history. We've pretty much been together for 5 years. And
wow.
yeah.
That's so cool.
And so it's really funny how life works, because it's like, you know, we went through our own struggles through time, and then we met up after nearly 10 years of not talking, and it was just really cool to, you know, and and I said to her going like, am I okay to get your name tatted on me? And she's like, no. I was
Flat
like,
out, no.
no.
She doesn't want her name on your body.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Which I'm like, okay, I respect that. That's all good.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
That's fine.
but yeah, I think but yeah, to this day, she's definitely been one of the people that have got me through these hardest points. You know, went through the points of like when my dad and I stopped talking. Like to this day, it's like, I think it's now 3 years because of just bits and pieces. It's, you know, another story for another time. But like, she's pretty much been there through every aspect of my life. And, you know, don't think I don't want to do this life without her, you know. And so it's been really awesome. And it's just funny how like life works. And
it's really good. I mean, you were talking before or earlier about having a good support network and like, you know, being able to get through everything that you got through. So
absolutely.
yeah. When's your next exhibition coming out?
Ooh, so there's a couple of things in the works. So I am working on.
Are you sure you could talk about?
I can briefly talk about it.
So exclusive?
Yes. So just wait and see. So I think the biggest question that everyone asks me is, what's the future for Burlesque? So the series that I've created. So I will say officially there is another one in the works. So I'm so happy about that.
Exclusive.
And so I was planning on doing one every year, but then I think for this one specifically, so I won't go into details. Everyone will have to wait and see for that one. So I think this one is taking a little bit longer because of specifics of what I'm going to be doing for this series. So there will be another Burlesque, which is really exciting for me. So I think it's like the whole trilogy of things. And I am also in the works with another artist, a painter, of creating a series together. So we're going to be doing a photographic / painting exhibition, which is really exciting. That's all I can really give right now. And
no dates or
possibly early next year.
Next year? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
that's cool.
Burlesque, I'm not too sure yet, so I don't want to say anything because then I don't want people going back. Jayden, you said that this was coming out then, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I thought so.
All in the works.
Yes, all in the works.
Well, it sounds like you got some really exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, I'm definitely very busy right now. And I've also got there's one more series that I can briefly talk about. I'm working on another series with another individual where we're making a body of work together as well. And that will hopefully be sometime in the next year as well. So there's,
a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I'm excited.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh, very excited.
How can people like find you or like contact you for a shoot or like see your exhibition work?
So I think probably the best way is through Instagram. Like that's where a lot of my business comes through. So it's Jayden Byrne Photography. So JaydnByrne. Some people, it's always very funny when someone tries to say my last name because, you know, like if I'm shooting a live show or something like that, they say, "Oh, we want to give big thanks to Jayden Byrne." Because sometimes it's a very
not that hard,
and I'm like it's just burn. Like I just think of what fire does if you touch it, it burns you.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's a very unique way of spelling it, but yeah, it's just Jayden Byrne Photography on Instagram. Unfortunately, you have to type in the whole Instagram name because
you're shadow banned.
I think I've been shadow banned for the last like 3 years. Because I don't know. It's like it was really funny. I had one individual who I worked with in the past who was asking my photographer mentor going, "Oh, does Jayden still do photography or is he retired?" And he's like, "No, Jayden's still going." And it's like, "Oh yeah, I never see his work." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, so so definitely you have to type in the whole thing because Instagram's making me look like I'm retired."
Yeah. I would go into account settings and then the status and then just and then you'll have warnings on there, but you can appeal them.
Yes.
So just appeal all of them.
Okay, I'll have to look into that then.
Yeah, because I think sometimes the bot picks it up.
Yes.
Not necessarily someone's reported you, but the bot has picked it up. And as with every AI beta tool, sometimes they get it wrong.
Yep, exactly.
You know, and yeah.
I've had some, like, there were times where I've had some shots where they've been flagged and I'm just looking, I'm going, really? I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Like, I've even had performer friends of mine who have actually posted photos that we've done together, and they're in full boudoir and all that sort of thing, but then Instagram says, "Oh, we can't show your content to anyone," and it's like, what have they done? Like, it's literally it's like,
it's such a crock. I'm so glad I'm not creating any of that content anymore because now I have no problems.
I mean,
it's just a conversation.
Exactly. And I mean, it's good that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, someone did say to me, "Oh, we should do a podcast like topless or something." I was like, no. No, I'll put a suit on.
Exactly.
Like a astronaut suit or my blow up dinosaur outfit. But, you know,
that needs to be like 100th episode.
Yeah. That's a celebration episode.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Jayden, thanks so much for coming along to have a chat. It's been great to meet you and just learn about your story and how you got into photography. And I can't wait to see what's going to come up next for you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor. And yeah, keep up with the amazing podcast as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for listening in. Make sure you hit subscribe and that notification bell, and if you give Jayden a follow. So catch you guys on the next one. Bye.